This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi Sai. Bruchim Abam. So we have a little bit of a different order today, as we're just trying to establish our Seder. This Shiur is going to be a combination of the Parsha and on Tefilla. So the Shiur on Tefilla on Erev Shabbos are sponsored by a good friend, Rabbi Tzala Rose, Lili Nishmas, his brother, Tzvi Ben Levi Yitzhak, and Neshama Shem Na'aliyah Amilut Yosher for his whole family. Okay, so welcome everyone. This Shiur is going to be on the Parsha and on Tefilla. And as we've mentioned, aside from TorahAnytime.com, now the Shiurim are available on various venues, on podcast, whether iTunes, Amazon, or Stitcher, or some of the other podcast venues. Okay, so we begin with a discussion about the Tefillah of Yitzhak Avinu. Vayetze Yitzhak lasuach basada. Yitzhak went out, literally lasuach, to converse in the field. Lifnois arev, as evening was turning, vayisa ina vayar, he lifted his eyes and he saw vihine gemalim ba'im, and the camels were coming. Interesting, he went out to daven, to converse in the field, and he lifts up his eyes, vayar, and he saw, whoa, vihine gemalim ba'im. Now usually vihine is a surprise. You know, Vahi Boiker, Vihine Leah. That was a big surprise, right? Yaakov woke up in the morning, he turns his kala, and it was a different person. It was Leah. Hine is usually a surprise. Rashi says, Lasuach, Lashon Tefillah. Lasuach is a language of prayer. So Yitzchak went out to the field to pray. How do I know Sicha is Tefillah? Kama Yishbaich Sichai. You know that pasuk in Tehillim? Tefillah lihani chiyahatoy v'lefnei Hashem yishpoich sichai. Sichai is Tefillah. Now the Gemara in Bracha says Yitzchak tikein Tefillas Mincha. Yitzchak was masakin Mincha shenemar vayetze Yitzchak lasuach basada lifnois era ve'ein sicha ela Tefillah. Sicha is only Tefillah shenemar Tefillah la'ani kiyahatoy v'lefnei Hashem yishpoich sichai. Says the Gilyon Hashas, in the Shiltus of Rabbi Achoy Goy in Parshas Lech Lecha we find Eshpoich lefanav sichi, a different gersa, right? Maskele David biyoisai v'amaras vila koili el Hashem ezak el Hashem eschanan Eshpoich lefanav sichi. That's how we know in sicha la tefillah. V'cheinu b'toisis avodah zayin amud beis. Okay. So we have a very interesting observation over here. It says that Yitzchak went out to daven in the field. Rashi says Yishbach Sichai, and that's the Gersa in our Gemarais. And if you look in the Gilyon Hashas, he brings down from the Shiltus and Tosfos that it's not from the pasuk of Yishbach Sichai, but Eshbach Lefanav Sichi. And Rashi is clear; he goes like our Talmud Bavli version. Now, Avram Avinu was Masakin Shachris. Yitzchak Avinu was Masakin Mincha. Yaakov was Masakin Mariv. V'yesh la'ayin. Avram Avinu, when he was Masakin Shachris, where do we find he was Masakin Shachris? Vayashkim Avraham ba'boiker el ha'makom asher amad sham. Ve'ein amida el atfila. Mefurish b'Torah. What was Avram Avinu's Shachris? He davened that the city of Sodom should not be destroyed. So Mefurish b'Torah shespalel al Sodom. So we know what Shachris was a tefillah for. How about Mariv? What was Mariv a tefillah for? Uv'Yakov shenilmad mi apasik vayivka ba'makoi muvan shespalel sham, that he davened that Hashem should save him from Lavan, from Esav. But what was Yitzchak davening for? It doesn't say in the Torah, we don't really have any clear clues what Yitzchak was davening for. Muvan shespalo sham. It's clear that he davened there. Sheyatzilenu Hashem me'esav u'me'lavan, that God should save him from Esav. Avot b'Yitzchak d'siv kam Esav lo nisbar klal ma'hespal. What was he davening for? So the Sefer Birchas Ish, written by Rabbi Avram Yitzchak Shein, he says a very interesting thing, and I found much earlier sources for it, and that is, he davened that Eliezer should be successful in his mission to find the shliach. Now, why would he daven that Eliezer should be successful? Eliezer is about to walk in the front door. And the answer is, there is no way in the world Yitzhak expected Eliezer to be back so fast, because he had kfitzas hadarach. And what would be ordinarily a long trip, he made it in one day, on the same day. Yitzhak didn't know that Eliezer had kfitzas hadarach. Okay, the cause of Rashi in the pasuk Vayisaper ha'evel Yitzchak is called Dvar Masher Asa. Chazal were megale. Right when Eliezer said over to Yitzchak all the matters that he did, he was megale to Yitzchak the miracles that occurred to him, that the earth jumped to him. It's mashma from Rashi. Gilalai, he revealed to him. Hainu shelo yada, he didn't know. He didn't know. Meaning Eliezer had revealed to Yitzchak the kfitzas hadarach. Ulafika kasav kan vayiseinu vayar v'hine. Hine is a lashon of a chiddush, like the Rashbam says on the pasuk v'hine hileya, or in the Hamek Davar v'hine dvar Hashem by the Bris Ben Abasarim, because Eliezer thought Eliezer was still on the road, and therefore he was davening, and he raised his eyes. He couldn't believe it. He just finished davening, and all of a sudden Eliezer's walking through the front door. I mean, talk about terem nikra v'hunene. Look at the efficacy of the Tefilla of Mincha. Look how effective Mincha is. He just finished davening Mincha, and he lifts up his eyes, and the Shidduch is walking in through the... Imagine a guy is mispalo, Rebbe Shem, Grammy Parnasa, and all of a sudden it walks through the front door. That's what happened to Yitzhak. So the Sefer Berachos suggests that Yitzhak was being mispalo for a zivug, and he finished davening, and Rivka's walking through the door. In fact, in the Sefer Shavoi Va'achlama, he brings a very interesting idea that if somebody is in the need of a shidduch for themselves, for a relative, for a family member, for a friend, one should try to put an extra emphasis in Tfilas Mincha. Mincha is particularly effective in being zoichet to Shidduchim. He brings over here, Yitzchak Nezar Begvura, Midas Hadin, he was Masaki in Tfilas Mincha, which is the time of Dinim. He quotes the Zohar, Tachazi, B'chol Shita Yom de Shabbos, Kadmata Shaita de Sloisa, all the 6 days of the week, when Shabbos comes, the Mincha, Dina Takifa Shalta, a strong din is shoyed, B'chol Dinin Misarin, and all the dinim are around. Shenemar Vayetze Yitzchak L'suach Basada Lifnois Erev, he davened that Sheyamtzi Loi Zivugoi, he davened that he should find his zivug. V'niskabel Tfilas Meyad, D'chsiv Basrei, Vayisa Ena, Vayar V'inei Gemalim Boim. Nimtza de'ikr tfilas mincha loy niskala al metzias hazivug. A further point. If you want to know, what was mincha enacted for? Why is there tfilas mincha? Tfilas mincha was enacted to find zivugim. V'hamispalo b'mincha, one who davens mincha mechuven ma'oid, and has a lot of kavanah ala zivug, yimtza zivugay mehera. He'll find his zivug quickly. The Toivia Zivuga will find a good Shidduch. So this is a very interesting Segula for Zivugim, and that is one should be Mechavin during Tfilas Mincha. In fact, the whole Tfilas Mincha was enacted to find the Shidduch. And then Hashem led me the way of the Kli Yakar. The Kli Yakar was written by Rabbi Ephraim Lunchitz. He was the Rav in the city of Lunchitz. In fact, my great-great-grandfather was the Rav in Lunchitz in the year 1860. This was the city of the Kli Yakar. Now in 1860, who comes to Lunchitz? The Malbim. The Malbim had just finished many of his Rabbanusim that he was dismissed from. The Malbim went from one Rabbanus to the next, as did many Gedolim in Europe. And he didn't have peace of mind, so he went to the city of Lunchitz, where he sat quietly and wrote the commentary of the Malbim in the city of Lunchitz in the 1860s. So the I had the chus to be at the Kliyakar's kever in Prague a couple years ago. He says, from this pasuk we learn out that Yitzhak was masak in Tfilas Mincha, which was toward evening, samach la'erev. This is, the Gemara says in Masechta Bracha, so this will be our bracha shir for today also. La'olam yizaher adam mitfilas hamincha. A person should be very careful in Tfilas hamincha. Shekein Eliyahu lo'inena ki mitfilas hamincha. Because Eliyahu, when he davened, Aneni Hashem Aneni, he was only answered with Tfilas hamincha. Now, what is so special about mincha? Avraham was masakin shachris. Yaakov was masakin mariv. What is so significant about mincha? V'yafa pisha Avram v'Yaakov tiknu gam tefillah shachris arvis. But when Avraham davened, we don't find he was answered right away. Avram davened to save the city of Sodom. We don't find he was answered. Yaakov davened to be saved from Lavan and Esav. We don't find he was answered immediately. But Tfilas Mincha, we find, look how effective Mincha is. Yitzhak just took 3 steps back from the Shemana Esrei. What was he davening for? We're going to see he was davening for his zivug. He opens his eyes and there she is. Wow. Talk about quick response. Aval b'tfilas mincha metzinu sheYitzchak nena miyad ki mistama hispalo Yitzhak ala zivug. Mistama Yitzhak davened for his Shidduch. Yeah, you heard this? This is a Chiddush. Probably what Yitzhak was davening for was that Eliezer should be successful in finding a Shidduch. Now, why was Yitzhak mispalo for a Shidduch? What do you mean why? The Gemara in Brachos says, another Gemara in Brachos, on Zayin Amud Aleph. On Ches Amud Aleph. The Gemara says on the pasuk in Tehillim Perek Lamed Beis, Al Zois Yispalel Kol Chassid Eilech Aliyes Mitzay. For this, every pious person should daven. That means there's something in this world that you need to exert extra energy into davening for. And one of the opinions of what you need to daven for more than anything else is an Isha. So Eliezer was being Mekayim the Gemara in Brachas. He was davening for a wife. Therefore he went to daven this tefillah in the field. Shem nasan lai Hashem sada hamuchan lezriya beyeser seis al shar kol hasados. Interesting, because if Yitzchak, as we're going to see in Parshas Toldos, God blessed him with planting 100 times more than any other sadeh, like the pasuk says, Yitzhak barzei vayimsa me'ar sha'arim. If Yitzchak saw that his field was 100 times more blessed than anyone else's, kavachomer, if God gave Yitzchak a good field, then he's for sure going to give him a good Isha, because what's an Isha called? Karka oilam. She's the ground of the world. Asher toitzi zera toiv. If Yitzchak's physical field produced good peiros, certainly his Isha will produce for him Zeratoi v'yashar. And amazingly, as soon as he davened, it says Vayise Eina Vayar V'hinei Gemalim Ba'im Ki b'shas hatfila. Now why did he have to lift up his eyes? Because at the time of tefillah, Einav Lamata. At the time of tefillah, he looked downward. Omiyad achar siyum atfila, and as soon as the tefillah was over, nasa einav lamala, he lifted his eyes up. Vayar ki hoya nena miyad, he couldn't believe it. He saw, he was davening, Hashem, answer me, and he opens his eyes, and there she is. V'nei gemalim bam noisim es bazugay v'zel lamdu. From here we see that even though you have to put energy into shachris, and even though you have to put energy into mariv, but more than anything else, you have to put energy into mincha. By the way, mincha is the hardest tefillah of the day to be mechavein. In the morning, you wake up with a fresh mind. In the night, the day is over, you're about to go to sleep, so to speak, you've blacked out everything you have to do. Mincha, smack in the middle of the day. You have clients, you have customers, you have things that need your attention. But the Gemara says, La'olam yizar adam b'tfilas hamincha. Now, the Kliyakar explains an interesting concept. I've seen others dispute this. He says, why is mincha so effective? Because midas hadin is mekatreg balayla. Therefore, tfilas arvis hasmucha l'layla. It's because against midas hadin. Tfilas shachris is also near the layla. But mincha is far away from the night, and therefore there are no mekatrigim during Mincha. Marav is close to Midas Hadin. Shachris is close to Midas Hadin. Mincha is sort of in between. It happens to be that typically we don't say this. For example, when we were learning in Tarma Devaira about, I believe in the 10th parak, regarding the various midos that are shoyled at different times, we say chesed in the morning, malchus in the night, and I think Mincha is the time of Gevura, which is why Yitzhak was Masake in Mincha. In fact, the reason why Shalashudis is called Rava Deravin, mercy of mercy, is because it overcomes the Midas Hadin of the week and the Midas Hadin of Mincha time. The bottom line is, we see a very interesting thing, that Yitzhak Avinu was Mispalel Tfilas Mincha. Yitzhak Avinu, for all intents and purposes, we're assuming was davening for a Shidduch. From here we learn that if one needs a Shidduch, Tfilas Mincha is the appropriate time to be Mechavein. So much so that the whole Tfilas HaMincha was Niskan for Shidduchim. And we see the great efficacy of Tfilas HaMincha. That Yitzhak davened and he opened his eyes and there she was. So from here the Gemara derives, La'olam Yizoher Adam B'Tfilas HaMincha. So that will conclude our first offering for today.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.